This is UMass Hockey.
And O'Hara does something marvelous yet again!
Home to future NHL stars. 5 NCAA tournaments in the last 6 seasons. 2 Frozen Fours. And a national title.
Another shot, they score!
It's NewMass at a whole new level. Now, to get you pumped for all the Minutemen action on the ice, along with Nathan Strauss, here's the voice of the Minutemen, Jay Burnham.
Off the bench, Del Elche to the middle. Del Elche fires, he scores! Game winner! Del Elche!
And welcome back into another episode of the NewMass Minute, coming at you from the Podcast Emporium here inside the Mullins Center. Getting ready for UMass Hockey this weekend on the road at Northeastern. My name's Jay Burnham, voice of the Minutemen, alongside my cohort for how many years running? You've been around here now.
So I came in right
Nathan
after
Strauss.
you. Yes, I came in right after you. I've been here for 7 years, but part of that, 3 years of that was as an undergraduate student. So my senior year was when I started doing stuff with Learfield and so on and so forth.
When we reach a decade of your time here at UMass, how will we celebrate?
Well, I think it's kind of like a workversary, right? Because you're on year 8 now, or year 7 as well.
6.5, 7, yeah.
6, 7. But no, I mean, I think we'll have to do some sort of party. Like, I think what they need to do is let us have a broadcast, just the two of us, where we just have fun. Like, I don't know what that would look like, but we always have fun. No, it would be great.
All right, so we're going to talk about UMass Hockey here. The Minutemen on the road last weekend at Army, just a singular game. And then let's go back a little bit because we missed last week. I was in the Virgin Islands with UMass men's basketball. A Thursday, Saturday series against Providence where UMass won in OT on the road, lost at home. Give me your kind of 10,000-foot thoughts on that Providence series before we get to the Army game.
Let's go back even further, actually, because don't forget the week before that, there was the football hockey confluence of home game, and we were all over the place. So
Yes.
If you look back to when UMass got back, UMass started that run of Hockey East play. I think Greg Carvel called it this week Murderer's Row.
Yeah.
You had Maine for 2, BC for 2, and then Providence for 2. UMass ends up going 2-4 in that time. Now, for that whole time, they're without Michael Hrabal. They're also without a couple of other guys who have been banged up this year. And obviously 2-4 is below the standard. I think neither Greg Carvel nor the team is happy about
even
that.
realistically, during that stretch, and before that, it was ranked Cornell as well. So it was 4 ranked teams across 4 straight weekends. I mean, you win 1, lose 1 is probably the expectation for a lot of teams going into a stretch like that.
I think for a lot of teams, but I don't think it's the expectation for this team. Like, I really
That's
think
fair.
that this team expects to win every game. And I think more than that, they want to play UMass hockey. And I think there were a couple of games in this time frame, including the Saturday game against Providence, parts of the BC series, the Thursday BC, or rather the Friday BC game, and then that first Maine game where they really didn't play UMass hockey.
Like, just not competitive in those games.
You think about what defines UMass hockey, and it's, fast, hard, prepared guys who are, it's a system-based game. The compete is elite, and the mentality is elite as well. And it's unfortunate because there were 2 games, the last 7 games, including Army, UMass is 2-5, and that's not good enough, and they know that.
Right.
But there are 2 games in there where, the Army game, the chances are incredibly skewed towards UMass. You give up some bad goals, but you really offensively did enough to win that game on a different day. And then the Saturday game against Boston College, you played a pretty good and even game and got beat on a rebound. And again, the margins of hockey are so fine that you could easily be sitting here at 5-2 in those games instead of 2-5, but that's not where you're at. And so you're halfway through the year now at 8-8, and one last chance this weekend at Northeastern to get ahead of 500 before the break.
8-8, 2-5 in Hockey East, no longer ranked in the top 20, but a bounce here, a bounce there. And I think I've heard some hockey coaches say you create your own puck luck, right? I mean, you earn the bounces that come your way, and they just haven't happened. Now, you go to the Army game, and I want to talk about the experience there as well, but you're in the lead early. You're up 2-0 in that contest. What changed or what unfolded that kind of led to UMass not taking that one home?
I mean, it was just a couple of individual mistakes, and Michael Hrabal was playing his first game back since
So first game in a month.
Yeah, first game in 28 days. And Jackson Irving done a really good job, against some tough teams, and obviously, in his first real stretch of extended play. But you don't give up a ton of shots against Army. They get a goal late in the first period, and that makes it a 2-1 game. And then, in the second period, they just exploded really. And UMass gave up a shorthanded goal. They gave up a goal late after a series of incredible saves from Army's goalie. And they needed saves and they didn't get them. And, I would never pin the game on one thing, but you look at the numbers and you only gave up 14 shots on goal for the, in the first, 55 minutes of that game. 14 shots to 5 goals is not a good enough save percentage. So Michael Hrabal would want some of them back. Offensively, UMass looked great, but again, you can't rely on just one area of the ice.
So final 5-4, and this is kind of after the Thanksgiving holiday. You get the one standalone game, and then you're kind of in this break after UMass takes on Northeastern this weekend. But Coach Carve did come out and say, maybe Hrabal wasn't quite ready to be thrown back into the net. I can understand the eagerness to want him to get back in, even though Jackson Irving has been playing really well for UMass. And it looked like, Coach Carve took a little ownership on maybe him not being fully ready to play.
Yeah, and I think what he added more clarity to yesterday at media was, they need him to be ready to play. So if that meant risking him a little early or giving him the opportunity a little early to get back into rhythm, Michael Hrabal last year in the second semester was a .930 save percentage, I think .933. He was unbelievable and one of the best goalies in the country after New Year's. And that was after he returned from World Juniors. UMass needs that version of Michael Hrabal, the best version of Michael Hrabal, to be where they want to be come March. And so I think part of that means that you didn't want to throw him into against a good Northeastern team this weekend without having seen some game action before that. And also, he had been day-to-day for a couple of weeks, so he felt good enough, I think. And obviously it didn't work out. But at the same time, there's a world in which he makes one of those saves.
And now we're not talking about it. Yeah.
But, as Pete Brock said, right, if ifs and buts were kings and nuts, we'd all have a very good Christmas.
Fair enough. And I think just made me lose my train of thought there.
Sorry. Pete Brock, master of words.
Yes. I wanted to talk about the power play, though, because UMass 2 power play goals for Václav Nestrasil. He now has 19 points, second on the team for Massachusetts. And it seems to be, top 15 in the country in terms of UMass.
I think they're 7th in the country right now in percentage.
So the execution there in those scoring opportunities and creating those scoring chances, I think that coupled with the fact that they don't take a lot of penalties defensively, so they're not on the penalty kill all that much. It feels like that would be a recipe for having some success as they get deeper into Hockey East.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things about the way hockey is officiated and across the entire sport, right, is that it's pretty rare to have a big disparity in power plays taken versus power plays drawn.
Because there's some human element to say, hey, I need to even this up somehow.
Right. And I think Greg Carvel has said this a number of times that he prefers games where there's a higher standard, a higher bar for what constitutes a penalty. But you look back at, the last couple of Hockey East games, UMass took 1 penalty in the home game against Providence. It was a matching penalty, so they didn't go on the kill. In the game against Providence on the road, I think they had 2 true power play attempts, maybe 3, but there was some run over. So it wasn't a full power play attempt. Because UMass only takes, I think, 6.3 penalty minutes per game, they don't get the opportunities on the power play that much as well. And obviously, I'm not saying that as a good or a bad thing. It's just a fact. Lower event teams when it comes to special teams can be just as good or bad as, for example, a team like Michigan who takes a boatload of penalties and they draw a lot of them as well. And it has to do with the kind of hockey you play, but also the human element. So I think power play success is one thing, but I also think, as Greg Carvel said at media yesterday, the number for the kill is not as bad as you would think because UMass, again, has taken the fewest penalty minutes in the country.
UMass won't be back in action here at the Mullen Center until January 9th against Boston University. We'll get to that. But in that Army game, it felt like some line blending, some pairings kind of shuffling around. So, what did you think when the lines came out for that game?
Well, my first thought was to look at the D pairs because Greg Carvel talked about Colson Hanrahan deserving more minutes.
I mean, he really went on about Colson Hanrahan getting in front of pucks and blocking pucks in practice.
Yeah, he talked about how, that compete is not something that's necessarily taught. It's pretty innate. You have to want to block shots. And every game that Colson Hanrahan's played so far.
For those that haven't been paying so close attention, he is a freshman defender who wasn't in the initial D pairings first couple of games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, he's from right down the road. He's an East Longmeadow kid, I believe. And, he won the Kurt Hammer Award for the Gentleman of the Year in the USHL last year. And when I told Greg Carvel that, he said, I'm surprised anyone would have thought he's a gentleman the way he plays because he's a scary guy. He's he's the shortest player on the of the defensemen for UMass, I think, up there with, I think he's 5'10", but he plays big and nasty. And he had 2 massive hits against Providence, was playing top pair minutes with Lucas Ulvestad on Saturday. And I think he's someone who's really coming into his own right now.
I just think it is interesting because heading into the season, we're saying, okay, Ulvestad, Murray, your 2 captains on the same blue line. And then you've got the 2 guys returning and Keenan and Del Alce, and then some of the newcomers. And that made sense how they structured that at the beginning, but clearly just trying to find something that works here going forward.
Yeah, and also getting Landon Nyes, more ice time in the last couple of weeks, and also managing some minutes, for some guys who are banged up on the back end. Yeah. I think again, there are no excuses, right? And that's something that I appreciate about this coaching staff is Greg Carvel can list off a number of factors that contribute to results. But there will always be that is not an excuse for certain things. But I do think getting a full month off, with the exception of, Jack Musa and Larry Keenan, who are going to Davos, and Václav Nestrasil for World Juniors, this break comes at a good time because I think UMass could really use, getting healthy. They lost Justin Kerr on Saturday.
He's been one of their better face-off
best face-off guy. He won't be available this weekend. Cam O'Neill's been out since getting hurt in the second period of the first Providence game. You're down some bodies. The roster limits that came into effect this year affect that as well. So it's a shortened bench, and Greg Carvel thanked the players on Saturday for emptying the tank the way they did.
And now they have to go into Mathews, which number 12, number 11 team in the country, Northeastern, who beat you here at home. You'll get back-to-back games against them on the road in the penultimate games of the arena's history, 100-plus year history.
You ever been to Mathews?
I've been, but for basketball.
Yeah, it's I've got my own thoughts on Mathews. I'm sympathetic to any fan who's losing their arena that they've grown up loving. It's always been one of my less favorite places.
Tough place to
go.
Call for.
No, it's actually a great place to call. The problem is they have the largest video board relative to the arena. They put it in maybe 10 years ago or 8 years ago.
It's like retrofit, but did not fit.
Right. Imagine what Jerry Jones did with AT&T Stadium, except the stadium itself is like half the size. Yeah. So it's also incredibly loud. I'm excited to see what they do. But also Northeastern, I think
I feel like I'm picking up from you the fact that just because it's old and we have nostalgia for it doesn't mean that it deserves to be in continuous use.
Right. I mean, it's like, there are, those old, like an old Pontiac, like an old T-Bird. Yeah. Those can be really nice, but you wouldn't want to drive one of those. What were those Soviet cars back in the day? The Yugo?
Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah.
You wouldn't want to drive a falling apart version, would you? And obviously Mathews Arena was collapsing to the ground. It's part of what led them to make the decision. Anyways.
But it's going to be an exciting environment here. And a team that I think for Northeastern has kind of outplayed the expectations that people had for them heading in. They've got one of the best goaltenders in the league. They got one of the best forwards in the league, and Ritzkovian. So this is not going to be an easy task for Massachusetts. You got to figure out a way to get a win this weekend.
Yeah, and I think, look, coming into the first Northeastern game, which was all the way back over a month ago in October at this point, that was the weekend where they had Northeastern and Bentley. UMass at that point was, I believe, 5-1 coming off the Omaha trip, and they were, or maybe 4-1. Yeah. And at that point, you were saying, wow, UMass might be really good. And they still might be really good, but they're not right now, because at 8-8 and 16 games into the year, you are what your record says you are. And right now, UMass is last in Hockey East, and they're well aware of that fact. So I think in some ways, allowing UMass to maybe harness that underdog mentality could be helpful.
Yeah, it's been a couple years, since you've had that type of mentality, especially for the fan base.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things too is, I talk to a lot of people in the UMass hockey world, online and in person, all the time, and there's a level
You're online constantly.
Not as online as I used to be somehow.
You got a job now.
I got a job. I mean, I got two, right? It's like, but I think there's a level of frustration at how UMass has played so far that if you actually look at the fact, UMass is a 500 team that's, 22nd in the country when it comes to the votes. That's because Greg Carvel and this program have set the standard so high that mediocrity is an aberration. And I don't think this team is mediocre when the season ends, but right now at 500, they're figuring it out.
And I think what you said is that they don't make excuses, which
No excuses.
It was something you love to see. When you looked at the roster heading into the year, and this was blatant, it's just a fact, you were new up the middle throughout its entirety, essentially, losing all those bodies to NHL deals. He mentioned the other day in the press conference that Jack Musa might slide over to a center role to solidify things there with Kerr being injured. But there's definitely a lot of excitement, especially when you look at a guy, I'm not to kind of keep bringing up Václav Nestrasil, but the way he's able to create and find ways to score, especially on the power play, has to bring you some type of, I guess, excitement for the future. And there is, as you mentioned, with this break and with the games coming up this weekend and then some time off, they got an exhibition game in there as well, a chance to kind of put the pieces together and make a strong push once you come out of it.
In the last 5 years, Greg Carvel teams typically see about a 15 to 20% increase in productivity in the second half of the year. I was doing this the other day over when I was in my hotel.
We call it the Carve Index.
Yeah, it's the Carve Index. They typically play a lot better in the second half than they do the first. Now, it's a little different, and I want to take the NPI out of this because I think people are looking at how Hockey East has...
Well, they're not the top 10 team.
Yeah,
at this
Hockey
point,
East has had a down year this year, and so it's different than last year. But if this team can play good hockey and play UMass hockey come February and early March, they are talented enough to beat anyone.
No doubt.
It's just getting there. That will be the focus of the second half. And, in many ways, for the first time since I've been here, having a true winter break, a true 3 weeks off, basically, gives time to reset. And I think, hopefully you can get multiple points against Northeastern and then go from there.
Couldn't watch the Army game because it was on Flow, unfortunately. Had you dialed up. What does that arena feel like? I mean, I know doing a football game at Army is a life-changing experience. What's the hockey situation?
Well, it's really interesting, right? Because it's Thanksgiving break. There weren't cadets there.
Yeah.
So aside from the teams. So it was really interesting. It felt very vacant. Getting on post I thought it was going to be an ordeal. I just showed them my passport and they said, oh yeah, you're good. But it's the Tate Rink at the Hollander Center is right next to Michie Stadium, Michie Field. It's a beautiful view, right? You're it's built into kind of like a gorge where you're looking out at the Hudson River and
the reservoir,
the reservoir, and it's awesome. I mean, it was a great environment. The fans there showed out, and it was a great environment. Certainly.
Now, keep in mind that's an Army team that did beat Northeastern earlier on in the season as well. So it's not as though that's just a fluky win for them.
At the same time, they hadn't won a game in over a month. So I don't want to give it. There's no excuses, right?
And trying to spin it here.
I know, but I feel like it's a role reversal, right? Like typically, I'm the one who's
trying to be positive, man.
But honestly, I think being positive, I'm very positive about the next couple of months of this team, and I would say to everyone, UMass is 8-8. Don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't quit on a team. Don't stop being a fan because it's been bumpier than expected. I think there is value in coming out and supporting at Northeastern this weekend. I know there's a big pond club outing.
And you will
on
have
Saturday.
a lot of UMass fans there for sure.
There always are.
Yeah.
At Mathews, and come the second half, I think you're going to see a team with renewed vigor, and I'm excited for it.
All right. So January 9th, back here at home against Boston University. If you're the staff, I mean, what type of game are you trying to get into here at Northeastern before you kind of have a little time? I mean, how are you trying to play this?
Fast and hard, I think, is the answer. And UMass went into Northeastern last year coming out of a tough spell in Arizona and came out and I think shut them out 5-0 or maybe 5-1. And they played one of their best and most competitive games of the year. I think you look at the way UMass played against Providence on the road, with the exception of 8 to 10 minutes in the second period, that's the kind of game that UMass wants to play. And I think they can do it on the smaller sheet. I think having seen this team already, I think they caught UMass flat-footed in that opening game. I think, the compete has been there. The compete was there against Army. Just needs saves and again to bring the physicality.
Yeah, we didn't know who Lawton Zacher was in goal when he showed up against UMass, and he's turned out to be one of the better goaltenders in Hockey East.
Well, yeah, I think we knew who he was. He's a Richter guy last year, but we didn't know how he would adjust to Hockey East.
Yeah.
And it turns out he's still first in the country in goals saved above expected. So he's been fantastic. Northeastern has hit a couple of roadblocks, in Hockey East play because everyone is good in Hockey East. But this is going to be a really good couple games, and also the rare non-conference game against a conference opponent on Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you got the Saturday game, which will count as a conference game.
Yes.
And the Sunday game,
Correct.
That's non-conference.
But it still counts, right, for NPI. It still counts for your record. It's just replacing the AIC game that both of these teams have had scheduled.
Stack some wins, man.
Yeah, and go out into the break on a high. You don't want I think there is something to be said about, going out with a win. Like flying back from the US Virgin Islands, right? Like it's a lot better coming off of a win.
For men's basketball.
Yeah. Right? Then
feels good.
Yeah, because you have a month off between games. Actually, more than that. You've got a month and 2 days. It's a long time.
So we're going to have to get back together next week, and then we will go on a hiatus for the show until things start to pick back up.
Yeah, right after New Year's.
Can't wait, man.
Yeah. You got any good plans?
We're going to Barcelona.
Oh la la, Barcelona. That'll be great.
Fun, man. Yeah. I'll bring you back something nice, all right?
Yeah, maybe some patatas bravas. Should be a lot of fun. Got to get up to Canada at some point too.
We got to talk about we're taking a Canada trip. We will we'll clue you guys in on that once we get our details lined up. Any last words, thoughts, feelings?
No. See you all at Mathews on Saturday and Sunday, and then talk to you all soon.
Sounds good. And then we'll see you all here at the Mullen Center on January 9th for the new year as UMass Hockey gets back in action. He's Nathan Strauss. I'm Jay Burnham. This is the NewMass Minute saying so long from Amherst.